Now, many of us would use a camera like this one to take our films. It's digital, it's electronic, and it's got all the tricks and things that you'd need. But most of us wouldn't find that our work was nationally important. But that has happened to one Northwest family. Now, the films are called the Alexander Archive, and Inside Out has been given exclusive access to some amazing footage which is previously unseen and really is a social diary on most of the last century. The Alexander tale is one of love, tragedy and obsession. Here's Dick Duckenfield with the first of 3 fascinating reports.
It's an obsession that lasted 44 years, and all because of this woman and this camera. In 1919, Marjorie Alexander, a wealthy young woman who lived in Heswell in Wirral, bought a Kodak cine camera. It was to be a diversion following the tragic death of her fiancé in the First World War. But from that moment on, Marjorie never stopped filming her family's rich and privileged life. Their wealth came from the family's accountancy firm. It enabled Marjorie to travel, and wherever she went in the Northwest, all around the world, the camera went with her. Her archive features some incredible moments, from an encounter with Hitler, who drove past her in 1934 at the Nuremberg Rally. And a year later, she filmed King George V arriving at Liverpool's Sefton Park for his Silver Jubilee celebrations. 30 years on, and she was still filming. This time it's the Queen and Prince Philip in New Zealand. It was her opportunism with the camera that saw Marjorie film moments like these: a ship aground in the River Mersey, and film of HMS Conway, the Navy's training vessel, which later sank in the Menai Straits, and naturally, Marjorie was there. The collection of films now forms a diverse social tapestry that spans 4 decades. But until recently, the films remained forgotten and lost in an attic. Now they're being hailed as a unique collection and a living time capsule of life here in the Northwest. Gemmill Alexander is now 84 and the sole survivor of a close-knit family. He's the last living link to his Aunt Marjorie Alexander. She devoted her life to looking after him, his 2 brothers, Stuart and Donald, and sister Hilary, when their mother died when Gemmill was 9.
She really was a most remarkable woman, by any standards. Those of you who've been seeing something of her photography will know how well she managed with a camera and what she achieved with it. But you imagine a young girl who lost her fiancé in the First World War and decided to devote herself to looking after her mother. Her brother's wife dies, and her brother, with 4 children, dumped themselves on her. And she coped with that. She loved us all, so she must have had a great deal of talent.
Marjorie's life story and those of her family, the Alexanders, is quite extraordinary. But it's a story that might never have been told. The films were almost lost when Marjorie died. Gemmill cleared out the entire collection, including her camera and projector, never thinking he'd ever see them again. The archive ended up selling at auction for just £9. In the following years, the collection passed through several hands and was due to go to a car boot sale before it was rescued by film collector Steve Bate, who runs a video production company near Conway in North Wales. For Steve, researching the films has become a voyage of discovery.
You couldn't stop, you had to go through the whole archive, and I think it took me a month. The minute you started winding the editor, he was actually going back into the 1920s, and you felt that he was looking through a hedge in the garden, actually watching these people. But you've got the original boxes all labelled up with the dates and progressive dates going right through into the 60s, and she used to cut and splice all the films onto these 400-foot cans. We got a shock to find that Miss Alexandra's actual original projector, this thing still runs to this day. It's still got its original bulb from possibly from the 20s and 30s, I don't know, but that was a surprise finding that working. Another amazing thing was this Alexander's camera.
Using the camera was no easy task. You had to follow the manual closely. Marjorie had to load the film, thread it through and wind it around the inner spools. She then had to wind the camera up. This gave her enough power to shoot only 29 seconds of film each time.
And she would have just pulled the trigger. And to think that she never used a tripod, was actually using the viewfinders. I can't really quite do this today because I'm spoiled by tripods, but that is amazing that she kept these shots so steady.
For Gemmell, it's been an extraordinary experience, suddenly being able to relive his past. He took me to Steve Bate's studio to look at some of the archive.
You have to try and remember that it was taken over 40 years.
How does it make you feel, that, looking at this sort of thing at
Makes
an
me
early
cool.
part of
Makes
your
me
life?
Cool. Look at the snow. You sort of enter into it, really, when you watch it. You sort of get into the spirit of what's going on. It's so familiar. You know, it's all family, and you're there and just thinking of it and doing it straight away.
This is one of the rare moments when Marjorie appears before the camera. But all the while she's joining in the fun in the snow, she's having to count the seconds before she has to run back and wind the camera up again. She always had an eye for the unusual. This isn't China. It's the film set of Ingrid Bergman's Inn of the Sixth Happiness, which was shot on location at Beth Gellet. You can see from this scene of Hilary's birthday party Marjorie's flair for filming natural, unrehearsed moments of the children at play in the large gardens of their Heswell home. I decided to take Gemmell for a long drive down memory lane. He'd not been back to the house for over 60 years.
And now this is all built up. This was all open field, all that place to the right there. That was where we used to play mixed hockey at Christmas with all the locals.
There's a shock in store for Gemmell when he sees what's happened to their vast garden.
Yes, very lovely. But I mean, it's only a tiny bit of what used to be.
But if you look back at the house, that's the same, isn't it?
Yes. The whole of that expanse where we played and did everything. It's gone. There was the seesaw, which was fun. Children and the au pair playing with us. The gardener going round with his mowing machine and enjoying the fun with the family. And of course it was here that my poor brother Donald was photographed on the lawn with his sister playing with dolls.
Marjorie died 20 years ago. What started out as a hobby and then became an obsession has now become a legacy. Her films provide an extraordinary insight into a way of life that's long since gone. A way of life thanks to Marjorie we will always remember.
And in next week's exclusive look at the Alexander archive, we'll be finding out exactly where the Northwest's super rich used to go on holiday and party. But that's it from Inside Out for this week. Until next Monday at 7:30, bye-bye.